Vanessa, thank you so much for being here with the film to speak with us. As I said in my intro, I think there's a lot to talk about, and I want to start by asking how you approached the task of adapting such a fraught memoir, a memoir with so much sort of politically, but more so psychologically, the sort of the difficulty of this work, because I think it's really fearless. The story that Vanessa Springora is telling is quite fearless, just the act of telling it. And I'm curious what your goals were in taking the written story and translating it to the screen.
Well, for sure, first there was quite a huge responsibility to adapt a novel. A responsibility toward Vanessa Springora and toward also all the victims, who've been abused sexually. But my first aim was not to betray her another time. I think that through the books of Gabriel Matzneff, she was like raped, on intimacy. It's like more public rape. And for me it was impossible to transform her another time in a fictional character. And I thought that by making that movie, we thought with my producers that it could be, it could prevent also people, and it was important for us to continue the fight she had initiated by writing that book, and to, like I said just before, to encourage people to speak up, and but to be honest, because I've been presenting the movie a lot of times in France since it has been out, and I've been meeting a lot of victims who really told me a lot of things about their abuses, and it was really moving to hear them telling me that they were, how can I say that, recognizing themselves in the movie, and how true it was. And for them it was important that people understand also what they've been through. And but also something happened very, very important in France. When the movie was out, the youth, the young generation, by all the social media, it's been like a kind of phenomenon. They went in a lot to the theater to watch the movie, and they made that movie like they used it like a kind of weapon to say how angry they were feeling, seeing that our society let people like Gabriel Matzneff act in all that impunity, and to see all these youth feeling so concerned inside gave us some hope. And it was really, we really wanted them to watch the movie also to understand the mechanical of the creep, and maybe to be in a way armed, and to understand how they could maybe escape from it. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
No, it's perfect. I know that the publication of Vanessa's memoir had very concrete, observable political consequences, the age of consent legislation. And I think that there's a different sort of power that the cinematic image can bring to the story, and perhaps different effects that it might have politically, and certainly with regard to its impact on audiences. What cinematically did you want to bring to the novel to sort of differentiate the film adaptation from the text? Because I think this story there's a powerfully different effect in seeing a young girl or an actress playing a young girl in this situation. Was that on your mind?
Yes, because I deeply thought that that seeing can have a kind of protection impact for yourself, because you can identify yourself to the actress and really understand in real time, in the real time of emotion, what she's going through. And so that's, I mean, when you are under manipulation, when you're under influence, it's very, very hard to put words on what you feel, and also to recognize all that mechanical, situation. So to allow and to let the audience being able to identify themselves to the actress, I think that could help. But the difference between, indeed, the novel and the movie is that we are in that real time, And Vanessa Springora, when she writes, obviously she has a kind of distance. So sometimes people say that maybe it's even more violent to see the images. I think it's just a question of realism, But the story is very complex, and I really wanted the spectators to understand all the steps of psychological and physical situation, and so to really understand it in real time and to catch her vulnerability,
And you worked with Vanessa Springora on the screenplay. Could you speak a bit about that collaboration?
Well, that's a really beautiful story. I mean, when you watch the movie is really obviously very violent because her story is very violent. But we really encountered together through that project, and we became very close, and we could say friends now, real friends, and I think for a long, long time. And but that was not something which was written in advance. I mean, but when I finished the first version of the script, I asked her obviously to read the script to know what she was feeling, because I really wanted to be the closest possible to her truth and not to betray her, like I said before. And so she read the first version, and then the third one, and the fifth one, and we created like I would say an emotional, intimate, artistic collaboration, because we shared so much, and that was great, because I couldn't have done this movie without having her consentment, And I needed to feel also that she was trusting me, and she really testified the way that she trusted me. She really wanted me to feel free to adapt her own story, and but to me it was important to know, to always know what was behind the doors. I think about like movies from Buñuel. When I was a child, I was really fascinated by discovering behind the closed door what was happening, and it was important for me that when she will discover the movie, that she will feel how obviously there a lot of my emotions, but I really wanted to be the closest possible to her truth. And when she watched the movie the first time, it was a longer version, but I wanted her to watch it before. She made me the most beautiful compliment ever. She told me it is, in French we'll say, c'est juste, so it's true. And that was, important.
I want to ask you about Kim Higelin in particular. I think her performance as Vanessa is, in so many ways, the heart of the film, and she's remarkably true. I think it's a very true performance as an embodiment of a 14-year-old. It's very vulnerable. In many ways she wears emotions on her sleeve, but in other ways she's very closed off. She's very leaves things unsaid. And I'm just curious how you found Kim, and how you at what point you knew that she was right for the role, and what the process of developing the performance was like.
Well, we had started to make like a huge casting because we were really searching for a girl older than the character because of all those intimate scenes and everything. So it was hard at the beginning, and then Kim arrived and she was like an evidence. She was so moving, and she really understood all that complexity and all those psychological, states I was talking to you about. She was truly concerned by the subject and by the fight she was, going to involve into, and yeah, she was amazing. And I can say that all the team, on the set was really, really engaged, really committed, really, fighting to tell that story. But Kim was, when I asked her that, for instance, if she was scared by, those scenes she which was on the script, and sexual scenes, intimate scenes. And she told me that there was nothing she was scared about because it was more important for her. And that finally the scenes which were describing more the psychological violence were more difficult to incarnate. All those scenes between a mother and him, for instance, at the table when they are dining together, was carrying her much more. And yes, there was a beautiful discussion we had together when we were, speaking about the courage that she would have to play that character, and her, like Jean-Paul, told that it was nothing compared to the courage of Vanessa, who needed like 30 years in her life to make this story happen and to tell her own story. So we really like our aim was to defend, that fight.
I think the tone that the film strikes is quite delicate in some ways, and it's you mentioned Buñuel. I'm interested in your other cinematic influences because I think there's the film is located at a very precise intersection of sort of a coming of age story where you see a young person learn about herself and learn about her needs and her boundaries. And there's also an element of sort of suspense or almost a thriller kind of a tension that underlies the narrative and the way in which the narrative pushes towards its conclusion. And then there's also elements of even melodrama or sort of heightened emotion, both with regard to her, Vanessa's sort of romantic attachment to Gabriel, but also her relation to her mother, and sort of you're juggling a lot of very sort of delicate tonal strains, and I'm curious if you could just speak about how you managed that.
Well, to be honest, first, it's not the first time I've been asking about my references, but I was talking about Buñuel because this is an image that really stuck in my mind since my childhood. But I don't really have references to be true. My emotions are always emotions. My references are always emotions, but why not? And this is the way I created the movie. I really wanted all my staging, even the place I will put my camera, to be led by the emotions of the character. So that's it. But it was really to catch a vulnerability. But yeah.
I think the way in which you captured this very specific milieu also of the French literary establishment, intellectual establishment in this particular moment in the 1980s is so specific and so sort of textured. You feel, watching the film, immersed in this world. And I'm curious how you approached that challenge. And I think inevitably watching the film, one is reminded of the parallels between that milieu and, contemporary conversations of Me Too and as we're seeing specifically in the film industry. And so what was on your mind as you were approaching this sort of, it's both period, it's a specific period, but also a very specific sort of cultural space.
What was on my mind?
Yes, how did you approach the French literary establishment as a subject?
Oh, okay. Well, it's also one of the reasons why I wanted to adapt this story, because I was really shocked and feeling angry about the fact that there are so much abuses of power in the culture, and how the culture should be like should help people to connect and to share, and how sometimes culture is used to destroy the others. So that was more in the depth, en tous les cas. Profondeur? Depth? The depth, pas the depth. But so to obviously to adapt this movie, I had to read a lot of Gabriel Matzneff's novels, and to dive completely into that context and that environment. And I wanted to translate it exactly like it was, but it's sometimes a bit strange when people say it's just another period. It's so far away. In reality, we are just like 40 years before, and one of the last sequence during the dinner is happening in 2013. And so at this time, Gabriel Matzneff received this prize, consecrating his whole career. So we're not so far away. And now in France, with all what's happening, we're nearly calling that le Me Too du cinéma en France. We're really talking again about that period, but not only, things change for sure, but not as fast as we wish it could be. So there are a lot of resonances, and I think it was important because it's the parallel is very brutal but necessary to show.
I want to make sure to leave time for audience questions. I think we have a mic with an assistant who will be bringing it around. I see one hand went right up on this side, and the mic will be right with you if you don't mind just... Mm-hmm.
This film deserves an Oscar.
Thank you.
The story, the acting, the amazing cinematography. Oh my God. Getting right up there. The music. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to ask, in real life, what happened to Gabriel to this? Was he... Somebody took him to court?
He's still alive, and he's still hanging like a zombie, I think, in Saint-Germain. But he still has a lot of complices, It's a kind of very little milieu with a lot of protection, and now, like I was saying, about all these resonances, all what's happening in France. But the question is really the impunity in art, you know, the confusion between men and artists, and I think that Gabriel has still a lot of friends. And you know, when the movie was out, we discovered that he still had a lot of friends among the journalists.
Because I remember I read French, and at the time when all this happened, some of these literary figures, they left France. They were afraid they would take them to court, they would be in prison. It was in the news. I don't know, do you remember that? How come he's not in prison?
Ont dû quitter la France parce qu'ils étaient inquiétés par la justice. Pourquoi il n'est pas en prison?
Well, I haven't heard so much, you know, writers leaving France, but there's also a terrible question about prescription, you know, because when the novel of Vanessa was out, a lot of victims of Gabriel Matzneff testified about what they had lived with them, I mean, their abuses. But the time, you know, was past. And there was another story recently. A woman said that when she was a child, she was adopted, and her parents were friends of Gabriel, and they were giving her drugs to be raped by him. And she put words on a réseau of pedocriminals who were acting around him, and but it's still en cours.
The case is still underway.
So nobody arrested him.
Thank you for great work. It's interesting, the title is sort of say catch all. It's a consent of a parent, consent of a school, consent of the doctors, consent of the society. It's quite amazing. We haven't seen this film in a long, long time. We used to have a few films made in the United States, a few in Europe, but it's quite amazing work because you have to be very balanced to make the viewer make own opinion. Thank you. It's quite a interesting work, content.
Thank you very much.
And I'll echo that. It's an extraordinary balancing act that I think you achieve, and we applaud you for it. So please join me in applauding.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all, and thank you, Vanessa.